What's up, Browns fans? Back from Philly, and we got plenty to talk about. It was an eventful day, really an eventful 2 days, but I think Thursday took the cake, Megs, because we all got all kinds of news, particularly from the legal world.
Yeah, nothing happened, dude. Nothing happened for our Browns.
It's weird. Like, I felt like we have a lot to get caught up on from the 2 days of joint practices, but then, I almost feel like we need to lead with the other stuff first.
I mean, I think we got to lead with the other stuff first because holy cow, what a couple hours for Browns fans.
Yeah. We can get into it. I think we'll start with the Quinshon thing because essentially the Quinshon Judkins situation is being dismissed. No formal charges are being filed against him. There was a document filed from the state attorney basically saying, hey, listen, we aren't going to file these charges. They cited a couple of different important pieces of information. The fact that the report from this female companion of Quinshon Judkins came several days later, and that they had some sort of video evidence that she didn't have these wounds before a certain time. I don't know all the minutiae and all the details in that regard, or the exact timeline of things that they saw. But there was reasons based on what they sort of discovered to suspect that maybe this wasn't worth following through on. And so they are not going to file any formal charges against him. It sets the stage for him to now begin the process of rejoining the Browns. He obviously has to get his contract situation worked out. I do think it's notable, though, for everybody to remember, just because there's no formal charges doesn't mean he can't still be suspended by the NFL. What that would look like to be determined. The NFL sort of they we have to always remember they run independently of the law. They do their own research and do their own digging and whatever. So that still could be in play here depending on what they discover. But it's a step in the right direction for Quinshon in terms of being able to come back, get back into practice, get caught up to speed as best he can, and try to get ready for the start of the season. And if he avoids a suspension, then I guess that's even better for Cleveland.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're very plugged in, to everybody, to everything, and this kind of dropped when you were traveling home from Philly. So maybe not so much around the beat writers and everybody, but what's kind of the sense around this? Is this from what we can tell, what I could tell, is that, there's some uncertainty around the evidence that was presented, but is this a situation where, maybe, there was a settlement involved? I don't know, I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know where to go, where I land.
Well, so there doesn't need to be a settlement if there's no charges being filed. That's the thing. If they're not going to file charges, there's nothing really to settle, unless I guess theoretically
that would even be before that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause if you're settling, it's the charges are there and then you're we just want to get this over with. So we'll just, settle and be done. This is straight up, we're not filing any charges. So this isn't going to go to trial. So you're free to go essentially. Yeah. So yeah, it's, I don't know. It's a weird situation because, I think there's obviously reasons to be excited about Quinshon Judkins coming back to the football team. I've loved Quinshon Judkins this entire time. And this running back room, frankly, could use him because I think that's been one of the struggles this camp has been, the run game and getting that going. But at the same time, there's now this doubt in the back of people's minds of the type of person that Quinshon Judkins is, and he's going to have to sort of smooth those things over with fans and whoever else and, prove that he isn't this person that he was accused of being. There's these situations are always very sensitive because sometimes it is a false accusation, sometimes it really happened. You tend to side with the victim, but we never get the full story, and that's why they do their due diligence on discovery and investigating to sort of figure these things out. And as this one turns out, it sounds like it's a positive step or a positive for Quinshon Judkins, and he's not going to be charged. So
yeah, and the hard part is in the court of public opinion, this stuff tries. Dude, that's the I think us two on this show have been very like wait for more information to come out. Like if it happened, awful. If it didn't happen, awful for other reasons. But like I think we approached it very level headedly. I don't think that can be said across the board. And like even still to this point, you don't know, right? Like just they threw it out doesn't mean that nothing happened, right? Like she still had bruises on her, all that's like it is good that it's there's at least a resolution, but you just hope that you hope that it never. You just wish it just never happened. It never got to this point, I guess.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. You mentioned the court of public opinion. I think that's kind of now like the biggest part of this for him is like, yeah, it's resolved legally, but now there's this doubt in the back of people's minds, right? That's what this, whether he really did it or not, whether he's guilty or not, whatever. We can't he's not going to be found guilty in a court of law, so that's sort of irrelevant. But in the back of some people's minds, like the court of public opinion is the court of public opinion. They are free to believe what they want to believe about you, whether a jury found you guilty, a judge found you guilty, whatever. So that's going to have to be, again, sort of just this righting of a wrong that he's going to have to sort of prove for the rest of his career. I wonder what it means for his contract situation. I'm going to guess the Browns are probably going to be a little weary of giving him like the fully guaranteed money that other players around his draft position got, because they might sort of view it as, listen, we don't know that we can trust you right now. We gotta sort of see. So we'll see what that looks like. And that's step one towards him getting out there on the field anyway. And obviously then step two is he has to get up to speed, which might take some time, like just by nature of where things are and the fact that he's a rookie. Like if this was a veteran player, sure, I could see him starting week one. It's a rookie. Like he's got some stuff to do. He's got some catching up to do. I don't know if he plays week one. We have to wait to see what happens with the suspension. But yeah, there's a lot that's supposed to play out here. But a positive note from the sense of Browns are likely to get their second round picks, potential star running back. What was so wild about all this though is that like while that was still sort of being people were still reflecting on that news. Then the Browns apparently signed Isaiah Bond, who was caught up in his own legal situation, accused of sexual assault. There was a no bill from a jury, so it's not going to court. And he was also now free to go. And that story is even crazier than I think Judkins, where it's like 2 weeks before the draft, this accusation comes out, the police report's filed, whatever. And then like because of this is a guy who was one of the top 10 receivers I think in this draft class in general, and because of that his draft stock just plummets, goes undrafted, and he's just kind of waiting in the wings to see what's going to happen. And now here he is now able to sign with any team because he was an undrafted free agent, and somehow some way he ends up choosing the Browns, and the Browns end up choosing him. Now the Browns are saying that they are still doing their due diligence, but let's just call a spade here. Like when the Browns do their due diligence on players that have off the field questions, it tends to lead to that player then joining the team. So I don't know that really matters all that much.
Yeah,
doing their due diligence. He said in his own little statement that he's joining the team. I think that's pretty telling that this is happening. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and like the Bond situation is interesting because just kind of brushing off the notes from around draft time, because this is a guy who was likely a target for the Browns, and this was a weird situation because he was accused of sexual assault. He immediately basically claimed, and direct quote, was patently false. He actually countersued for defamation on his name, which that lawsuit was then dismissed. But he was very steadfast and like whatever was claimed didn't happen. Again, it's the exact same conversation. Like court of public opinion sometimes rules out, and like that is what it is, whether it happened or not, or whether it was real or not, or whatever. It was accused of it, and because sometimes you're accused, like that's all it takes for most folks to to pass their judgment on it. Again, I don't know. I wasn't there. Didn't see it, didn't hear it, don't know anything about it. And it's really hard to do. It's a he said, she said thing. And, those are always the worst. But the Browns are, and I apologize for laughing and making light of it, but it does seem like always very, very serious situations. The Browns are always around it in some way or some form. And, sometimes the jokes, if you will, write themselves in scenarios like that.
And both these incidents stem from that same premise of like he said, she said. That's why they're so difficult. That's why they're difficult, like to even get to a trial, because there's not always a lot of evidence to help your cause. I mean, Deshaun Watson's situation, there wasn't a lot of evidence to prove one side or the other, so there was not going to be any criminal charges brought against him. Like they didn't take it to that level because the federal court decided like there's not enough evidence here. So, like there's, it's how both those situations were they get resolutions. It's just always, it's crazy that the Browns almost always end up being on the receiving end of something, some player that has something going on legally. And my mind instantly went to Andrew Berry standing there and saying, obviously we take this very seriously when he was asked about the Quinshon thing. And it's like, you take it very seriously, but you always seem to find your way back to another player with a troubled, or at least with questions. I don't want to say like troubled maybe is the wrong word, because if these are false accusations, then it's like maybe they're not as troubled as people make them out to be. But it's the questions in the back of people's minds. It's maybe like a red flag. It's like, I don't know. Like, that's the other part of this. I'm not saying the Browns can't, like the Browns, obviously they can field a team that isn't, I don't expect them to field a team that's full of Boy Scouts. Like, I get it. Like, it's the NFL. The guys are going to do things that you can't always control. There's bad stuff happening in this league. It's not just the Browns, right? Yeah. But it's the fact that, like, for a team that has Deshaun Watson and everything that he came with on it, for a team that isn't really, like, that doesn't have like a lot of expectations this year in terms of like what they're going to probably do on the football field. Why create extra distractions for yourself? That's the thing I just don't get, is like, you don't have to do this. You could just not sign that guy. But I will say, I'm not surprised, because I've been saying for weeks, that really months, that I had a hard time believing that like the top 6 guys on this depth chart right now in training camp were going to be the top 6 guys when we got to week 1. I had a feeling they would go sign somebody. I had a feeling they'd go get somebody, whether it was via trade or otherwise. Did I have a shot? There was no way I had a shot in hell of guessing it would be Isaiah Bond and it would happen this way. But here we are. And so I get the thought process there of like, let's get this speedster wide receiver and see what he can do. Undrafted free agent with a lot of talent. I mean, from a GM standpoint, like, yeah, it's the perfect signing, because it's like, hey, a lot of talent we can tap into, a lot of untapped potential. We're getting them on the cheap. Like, this is a dream come true from that regard. But in terms of like another distraction in the locker room and all that, it just seems misguided. But they need wide receivers, and so at the end of the day, like, the needs of the team and talent always seems to trump the other stuff. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about the football player himself. 4.39 40 at the NFL Combine. His player comp is Jalen Waddle. Like, both of those two things are very good. Now, I will say, statistically speaking, not going to blow your socks off, right? You had mentioned earlier he's probably a top 10 wide receiver in the draft, which I think is pretty fair. Some folks, made predictions that he was going to be a first-round pick because of his speed. But from a statistical standpoint, years freshman and sophomore year were spent at Alabama, where he had his best year was 2023, his sophomore season, 48 catches, 668 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Which,
then he transferred.
Would have been with Tommy Reese.
Yeah. There you go. Would have been with Tommy Reese. Really good point there.
I think, right? Was he there at that point?
I do believe, because he came right from Bama to here. It was last year's first year in Cleveland.
I might be wrong about that, because Tommy, I think, was there.
Well, regardless, 2022.
Notre Dame.
No, 2022. I bet was Tommy at Alabama.
He was. That's right. He was there. For some reason, I was thinking. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I was right the first time. I should have trusted my gut. But
trust your gut, brother. You got this. You got this. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. But 2022, 2023, he's at Alabama. 668 yards was the most yards he's had in his career. He transfers to Texas in 2024. 34 catches for 540 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging nearly 16 yards a catch. Big play guy. Had 4 carries, 98 yards for 1 touchdown. I did see the best post of the night. Don't know who said it, but it was something along the lines of that first jet sweep or that first reverse to Isaiah Bond for -3 yards is going to be awesome, or something along those lines. Paraphrasing for sure there.
He's ready to run a lot of end arounds. Yeah,
end arounds, reverses. But the player is really good, and like you pair speed with Jerry Jeudy. I mean, from on the football field between the white lines, sign me the heck up. Don't know enough about that legal situation to comment even for more than what I've already done. But again, you're just right, man. Like, why do we got to do it?
Listen, we can question that, whatever. Like, and like I said, I get it from a football standpoint, 100%. This wide receiver room is devoid of talent. It's Jerry Jeudy. Somebody actually asked me the other night, who do I think the number 2 wide receiver on the team is right now? And I actually said Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson had a bad day today on Thursday, but like he's had a consistent camp. You can tell like he's good at running routes and getting separation. And he's making some plays. Like he's had some good days. He's had a couple bad days too. Like that happens. But so for me, like it's been Deontay Johnson who's the number 2 wide receiver on this team. Cedric Tillman, I've sort of been disappointed by the camp that he's had. Mm-hmm. But I think the Browns still believe in him, so he's making this roster. I think Jamari Thrash has had a really good camp.
Dude.
And then if DeAndre Carter's like your returner, last guy sort of on the receiver rotation, then you have room for one more if you keep 6, which maybe they don't keep 6 because they might be keeping 4 quarterbacks and they need to get somebody somewhere, and they're going to be running 12 personnel anyway. But it feels like now they're like, well, Isaiah Bond's our 6th guy. That's the other wide receiver we keep. Unless I don't know how much he did returns in college, but maybe he can return and then it helps you get rid of DeAndre Carter. I have no idea. But yeah, like it feels like this is them being like, hey, we knew we needed to add at this position. Let's go get this guy who has a lot of talent, untapped potential, get him on the cheap, undrafted rookie, all that, and that they're making it sort of happen that way. So we'll see. But again, I get it from the football standpoint 100%, but it's another player added to the roster that sort of leaves fans feeling uncomfortable, and I guess they just have to live with that. But moving on.
Let's talk football. Let's talk practice.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, there was a lot to take in the last 2 days down in Philly. Certainly, I think day 2 in particular on the offensive side, there was a lot to get into. I don't know, like where do you want me to start? Because obviously you weren't there, but I know you have questions. You
got questions.
Know like what things are going on and what you sort of saw from afar. But yeah.
Do we want to go positive or negative to start? Because I have one of each. And you'll be shocked. They're both quarterback related. What do you want to do? I think we go negative first and then come back to positive.
Okay. What's your negative then?
What Dylan Gabriel? What's going on?
Oh, just like his play?
Just in general. No, just in general. I mean, like from all we can tell from back home, the clips you see are tough to see out of the pocket. I think the quarterback tracker, while we make fun of it and joke about it, I look at it every day. The one day he was like 5 of 16 for 0 yards, and yesterday he had one completion in the team period. You were there, you felt it, you saw it. What does it feel like when Dylan Gabriel's on the field? It doesn't matter with the 1s, 2s, 3s. I don't care about that. But when he takes the field, what is the sense that you get while you're watching?
I mean, listen, I'll start by saying this. Like, Dylan Gabriel's camp has been very, like, roller coaster-y. Like, it's up and it's down. And, like, there's days where he makes some really good throws, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's finally turning the corner. And then he throws, like, an interception, and you're like, well, that's not good. Or he, like, gets a ball that, like, he throws a ball you just shouldn't, and it doesn't look good whatsoever. And you're like, okay, that's not great. We know we had the 2 rough days, like, before the Panthers joined practice in a row. That wasn't good. We know... Like, but here's the thing, like, and I want to give some to be fair to Dylan Gabriel. the reason the graphic is a tough thing to hold on to for that people really shouldn't take out of context is that like you're not getting that with any of the information of like what happened in certain situations. So I can tell you from Wednesday, I don't know. I think the graphic said he was like 6 of 19 or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But you go back and you look at like the stat keeping that we do, and you realize, okay, so like 3 or 4 of those were drops. I think it was 3. There was 2 more where there was like defensive penalties on like a hold or like whatever. So like you don't always get the context of what's going on all those plays as to why it was incomplete. And so that's not necessarily fair to just grade Dillon Gabriel off of like what this graphic is telling you without really seeing what they're doing in practice, what's happening in practice, all those things, which is why we try to add that context for you during practice.
And just the thing, like, let me jump in real quick, because like the thing that fans, and I think this is actually like one of the good times that I can provide some really good perspective on this, because from a fan's perspective, everything we see, there's like 2 or 3 people who report from camp that are like giving him a fair shake. From what we can tell back home is that this guy was worse than me as a quarterback and shouldn't even have been playing. I'd have been starting over him at John.
He never beat Mount Union.
He didn't beat Mount Union. Come on. Oh no, I'm frozen.
No, you're back. I got you.
Oh, we're back.
Did you hear what I said? I said he never beat Mount Union.
I believe it was going in some direction of he couldn't beat Mount Union, which
that's what I said. Yeah, he never beat Mount Union. There you go.
I don't think he could have. I had a good defense. He probably would have thrown for 7,000 yards against them, whereas I squeaked out 200.
Hey, that's a tough defense. Give yourself some credit. But anyway,
I appreciate you. I need to hire you.
No, listen. You're right. I want to be like, this isn't me trying to get on this podcast and say Dillon Gabriel's been great. Like, what is everybody talking about? All I'm saying is, like, in fairness of all these quarterbacks, and I think I've tried to be pretty fair to all of them. Yes, I like Shedeur the most. I think he's the most talented. But I've tried to be fair to all of them. Except maybe Tyler Huntley. He doesn't have a chance to make this team, but we knew that. At the same time, like, I think it's been a rough camp for Dillon Gabriel. Yes, I think if the general consensus that people have based off of whether it's the graphic or whether it's just the reporting is that Dillon Gabriel has had a rough camp, I think that's fair. I think you can tell that there's still some growing pains for him. I think you can tell that there's still a lot to work on. I think you can tell that he's not, showing things that the other quarterbacks are showing. And so, yes, I to me, that puts him lower on the depth chart for me. For the Browns, it might not, because they loved him enough that they drafted him in the 3rd round. I'm just trying to add that we can't use certain things that are shared as the gospel for Dillon Gabriel, because I think that you're missing some important context in those moments. And the most important context is like what happens on some of these plays. Sometimes it's an incompletion, but it's not his fault. Guys dropping passes is not his fault. Like he had there was an example on Thursday. First session, 11 on 11 red zone. He had a really bad pass on one, and then he had an easy sort of like flat route to one of the tight ends. I think it was Sal Cannella, and it was right in his hands, and Sal Cannella just straight up dropped it. So, like, there's nothing you can do with that, right? Like, it is what it is. It's not his fault. So it's been a mixed bag. I think it's largely been a disappointing camp for him. But there are some, there's moments where he makes throws. And that's been the hardest thing for me, is because, like, even when he's made those good throws, I've tried to say, I thought he had some really good throws today. I thought he showed something in this session. I thought he, seemed like he was making some progress here. And people were like, well, he threw an interception, so how could he have a good day? And it's like, we're missing some important context. That's all I'm trying to say. But I do think of all the quarterbacks, he's probably had the roughest of camps. Kenny Pickett's camp's been pretty rough because he's hurt. Like, there's nothing rougher than not even being able to play. But I thought Pickett actually had a strong start to camp before he got hurt, and then he just hasn't really been able to follow it up with anything.
Permission from you can I say something that may set our comment section on fire, but I have to get it off my chest.
I don't care. Go ahead.
I got to get permission.
If they comment, they're still watching, so fine.
Come at me, and then I'll tag the I'll respond back to every single one that I get. I'll respond back with the hour-long video I did of Shedeur saying that I think he's very good. But I do think, and this is my personal opinion, I hope that Dylan can play on Saturday and just show that he can play football, because the story around him, he's gotten the short end of the stick, just circumstantially gets drafted, should be awesome for him.
But did he get the short end of the stick though?
I think so. You're a third round pick, and then a day later the Browns draft, and that's not a problem. The Browns draft the most beloved college football player since Johnny Manziel, and they pick him in the 5th round, and the whole world wants him to play. And that's why you get the short end of the stick there, because nobody wants Dylan Gabriel to play.
They put I'll say this: they didn't do him any. They did him a disservice in that regard, by taking another quarterback and just taking, and it just so happened to take the quarterback that was the most polarizing of all.
That's
time.
it. If they would have took Tyler Shuck, it's a whole different world.
But the reason I don't know if they give him the short end of the stick is because he's gotten the opportunities to practice. Totally. He's had the most of the first. He's had first team reps. Shedeur Sanders hasn't. I tried to give him more chances to do things than Shedeur, at least to practice. And he hasn't done as much with his opportunities as Shedeur's done with his. So that's why I don't know if I fully agree with that. But I do think, yes, they didn't really do him any favors by drafting Shedeur Sanders after him.
No, it's tough. And I don't – and again, I want to be very, very clear. This is not me saying he should play, he should start, all that stuff. I just want him to go out and show that he can play football, because outside of the Browns practice, the whole entire Browns, which we could do a whole nother show on this Browns Twitter situation and Browns Nation or whatever. It's out of control, man. It is reached a fever pitch that we will never recover from. These people are out of their
people ready to fire Stefanski on Wednesday.
I saw a tweet that said there's no logical explanation as to why Shedeur Sanders didn't
that was the one.
The logical explanation is that he injured his oblique and he might be done for 3 months. There's your logical explanation. It's insane. These people are nuts.
Yeah.
But regardless of all that, I just want him to go out and hey, I'm not perfect. He's not the tallest guy ever, but he can throw the football, and I hope he puts on a nice show if he's healthy enough. Because if he's not healthy enough, guess what? My phone might ring tonight and say, hey, we need you to come take some snaps for us on Saturday in Philly, because there's no quarterbacks left outside.
Listen, you say you hope he does that. I think there's plenty of fans that hope he doesn't do that because they want to see Shedeur Sanders play. But because of how we're even talking about this, Saturday is going to be a big night for him. And I am assuming he's going to start, by the way. I know the team is being very skittish on saying anything. Kevin Stefanski, once again, was well, we got to see how he progresses on Thursday. I'm guessing we'll get some of that information on Friday at some point, where it's the team is going to start. He's his hamstrings held up, so he's going to start. And Stefanski said on Wednesday as well before practice that his plan was always, hey, I want to start Shedeur for a game, I want to start Gabriel for a game. So he's going to get his wish. But to your point, I'm you're sort of yeah, I hope he balls out, and then we can have a legit debate over hey, what do we think about this? But I think the pressure is on at the very least. He might not feel it, or he might be trying to block it out. But given how Shedeur's debut went, given the fanfare that came with that, how people have been raving all week about how great he was, Dylan Gabriel needs a good performance on Saturday, again, assuming he starts, because if he has a bad one, the worst thing that can happen for him is he has a bad performance, and we don't see Shedeur for a little while, and it's just well, this guy had a great debut, bad debut. It's pretty obvious who's better. Then we have to have that conversation for weeks on end, debating who should be number 2 on the depth chart or whatever. That's if he goes out and has a good performance, he gives you something to talk about. Where it's okay, Shedeur had a good performance, he had a good performance. What do we think? But nobody needs that more than him in this game on Saturday. The quarterback's conversation is always going to dominate these preseason games. It's always going to be the topic du jour, if you will. But I think Saturday it's going to be even more so that, because there's going to be people tuning in to watch Gabriel and be hey, maybe he'll do well, and we can be excited about this guy too. or they're going to tune in because they're going to sort of hate watch, and they're going to be like, I hope he sucks. Yeah. And Shador clearly is the better quarterback, and then we can like put this conversation to bed. And I've seen some of that on Twitter already, so I know it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. It's going to get weird regardless, but for me, I'm firmly in. I hope he plays good just for his own sake. That is not a comment on the quarterback situation. It's not whatever. If you disagree with me, please let me know. I'm sure many of you will. But sorry, Germ. We're going to go back to the positive topic from practice today, and that was the headliner, the title slide. Joe Flacco, Father Time has not gotten to him.
Did he carry the lead?
He was ripping.
Should that have been the lead? I don't know.
Well, we had a lot to talk about. He was ripping that thing around the field yesterday, huh?
Yes. So much so that we had other reporters who weren't there, traveling, texting us and saying, was Joe Flacco really tearing up the Eagles Super Bowl champion defense today? And we were like, yes, he was very much doing that. And I'll put it to you pretty straight here, Megs. I think we all knew where this was headed anyway, based on, sort of by default, injuries derailed some things, evaluations. But certainly, like, based on how Kevin Stefanski's handled the quarterbacks, it's been pretty obvious that Joe Flacco was probably going to be the starter. But if there was any questions left, or if anybody was like holding out hope for somebody else, that he put that to bed. He put that to bed. It's a joint practice setting where you're going against the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs. We know how much the team values those over preseason games, and he balled out. He was brilliant. He was doing the things that Joe Flacco did in 2023 that helped the Browns get to the playoffs. It was a rough first session of red zone. Granted, there was a drop in there for Flacco as well. I mentioned the drop that was for one against Gabriel. There was a drop on Flacco's end to Harold Fannin on like a post route over the middle. I think he would have actually scored on. And so that was like a rough start for the offense as a whole. But Flacco came out that next 11-on-11 setting, and he was 4 for 5. Would have been 5 for 5 if Jerry Jeudy could have just got his other foot down. And listen, the throw he made on like an out route to Jerry on that play where he couldn't quite get his feet in was one of the best throws I've seen all of camp. Sort of just like floated it over a defender right into a bucket to Jerry Jeudy, who caught it and just couldn't get his second foot down. That was a good throw. He had a touchdown pass to Jamari Thrash to end the session. That was really solid. Like Jamari sort of ran like a rewind route where he like went out and then cut back in, and he was wide open over the middle. Joe Flacco hits him. He runs in the end zone. There were some trick plays in that session, or really there was one trick play in that session involving Harold Fannin Jr. And then there was another trick play later on like a 2-point conversion play in a different session. But Flacco looked like vintage Joe Flacco. And like one of the things that struck me too, Megs, was like, we haven't, Shador Sanders has probably been the most steady of the quarterbacks, the most consistent of the quarterbacks. That means something, even though he hasn't taken first reps. I think Gabriel's been a lot of ups and downs. Kenny obviously has been mostly hurt. But we haven't seen any of the other quarterbacks to this point like go on a heater and just be like, you know what, I'm just taking this thing over the way Flacco did. And for that reason, I think like he almost has to be your week 1 starter because he just has this other element to his game right now that I don't know the other 3 have yet, where he can just like start seeing things really well and be like, I can make any throw, and the other guys still have to sort of prove some of those things. So again, for all intents and purposes, I think the quarterback competition was already trending in a certain direction, but Joe Flacco ended it today. He may not be the starter for all 17 games. He might not even be the starter for 7 games, but he's going to be the starter week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals.
And it infused a little bit of hope into this group. Like a lot of these players were there in 2023 where he did lead them on that magical run, got them to the playoffs, all that stuff. There's that for your team, and there's also that for your the fan base as well. You run him out on week 1 becomes – must watch against the Bengals where, it's Flacco versus Burrow. It got the chance to be fireworks and the Bengals struggles. Like we're getting close to being able to talk about that here in just a couple of weeks, which is certainly exciting. But Germ, can I interest you in an NFL futures line? Because I
bet on this show now.
I think we can.
Are we a betting show now?
We can be just for this second because the Browns line is 5.5, and I'm thinking, for wins. After what I heard out of joint practices this week that the Browns defensive line's dominating everybody. Joe Flacco rips it off today. The receivers don't look quite as bad.
Wait, you mean you haven't bet the futures? You haven't bet over 5.5 yet already?
No, I'm thinking about.
You're late. You're late to the party. I put a parlay together where I had bet the over for the Browns and the over for Ohio State, frankly. So there.
Oh, baby.
10.5 for Ohio State.
I'm thinking about, Mom, close your ears. I'm thinking about putting my mortgage payment on Browns over 5.5. Like, bet responsibly, but that would be a lot.
Bet responsibly as I lose my house.
As you'll see the for sale sign. Anybody who lives close to that for sale sign will go up right tomorrow. But joking aside, like that was some of the, obviously Flacco stole the storylines from yesterday's practice, but one of the storylines that took days 1 and 2 was that Browns defensive line seemingly was getting after the Eagles. And I know the Eagles were banged up and Lane Johnson did practice yesterday and all that stuff, but regardless, like, really good to see that the Browns front was more than just holding their own against the Eagles.
Yeah, listen, if you're a Browns fan, I always think there's like two sort of buckets of Browns fans. There's like the woe is me, we're cursed, we're never going to be good Browns fans. And then there's like the eternal optimist Browns fan.
Where do I fall?
What did you say?
Where do I fall on that?
You're probably the second one more so. I mean, you're the guy that like every week found a way to talk yourself into picking them to win last year. So I think you're always sort of the eternal optimist. But anyway, if you're in the second bucket and you're an eternal optimist about this team, I think this week of joint practices I was in the car driving home and I was sitting there like, you know what? Like there were some reasons for optimism this week. And I'll give it to you on a couple different fronts. Like you mentioned the one thing, defensive line looked really good against one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line in football, despite being a little bit banged up. No Lane Johnson, obviously, on Thursday. Like they were dominant and they were really causing some problems for the Eagles. That's not for nothing. I've said all along that group's going to sort of drive the bus here for the Browns and certainly the Browns defense. And if they can dominate, like they can win, they can be competitive in any game. I also thought on the flip side, the offense, I don't know that the offense is going to be great. I don't know that the offense is going to be elite. But what's the thing that we've been saying for a while, Megs? It's like if they can be competent, that's a lot. Competent is a lot better than last year because last year was like historically bad. Yeah. And so
how many games
compared to last year where at joint practices, the offense couldn't even get off the ground. Like they couldn't run plays because there was too many illegal procedure penalties or there was like a false start or there was hold. Like they could not run plays. They could not get out of their own way. And then this year you have Flacco just ripping it around the field, throwing touchdown passes on day 2. And the offense is at least running plays. They're not getting flagged every 5 seconds. That is the type of stuff that I think you leave and you're like, all right, listen, like, I'm not saying this team's going to be great. I'm not saying this team's going to win 10-plus games. I'm not saying this team's going to be I'm not saying this team's going to win a Super Bowl. Certainly not. But it might not be a great year. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be a year where they don't, win some games and give you some fun moments. And I think at the very least, we learned that this team has a chance to be competitive against a lot more teams this year, which was not the case a year ago because with how bad their offense was, they were not really competitive at all.
Yeah, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. But to your point, like the Browns were in a totally incompetent group last year on the offense side of the ball. And they had 4 games and where they lost that were within 1 score, including a game against the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field that they lost by 4, right? Obviously, it took a insane Myles Garrett blocked field goal that they returned for a touchdown. But, like, still, there's a handful of those out there. And you're like, hey, if you can just prove to be not the worst offense ever in the history of football, you're going to be in a lot of games. And, going from 3-14 to let's just flip all of those to wins to 7-9 is a very different season, right? It's a very different world that you're living in. So, definitely with you on that, and very encouraging to see, at least from afar, that seemed to be the case. So I have 2 more Philly specific questions, and I'll let you go back to hosting and doing your job. But my next question is this. This is something I picked up on just from clips and stuff. But you look around the NFL and there's every joint practice, there's like these massive brawls where guys are just trying to kill each other, hit each other with their helmets, all sorts of stuff. It did feel like, there was like this level of mutual respect between the Eagles and the Browns, right? Everyone saw the Landon Dickerson bringing the beers out for the offensive linemen. You saw Denzel Ward, tight coverage on Devontae Smith, picking him up off the ground. You saw guys tapping off and doing all the right things. Obviously, there was some intensity at some points, I'm sure, but did you get a sense of that these two groups kind of had this like mutual respect for each other, get good work in, keep everybody safe?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's a lot of things. Kevin Stefanski seems to, have a good relationship with Nick Sirianni. He talked at one point about like how their two families kind of knew each other a little bit. I think, obviously, Andrew Berry's twin brother, works in the organization, so I think that was kind of instilled from the beginning of this entire thing. But then on top of that, I just think like there's a lot of players that I think get along, and there's like there definitely was that feeling to it for sure. There was one small skirmish on day one at the end of practice. It was in like special teams drills, and I didn't see who it was at the time, but then I found out later it was like Tony Brown, who sort of got into it with somebody, but there was no helmets being swung. It cleared up pretty quickly. There was inches thrown. And so, like, those things happen sometimes. It's, the two teams finally getting a chance to hit somebody else, and it's like, yeah, well, sometimes things spill over a little bit. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, I think it was a very cordial setting and a competitive setting, frankly, which is what you wanted to get out of it, obviously.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just something I picked up on, and I even commented on it. Like, I don't think it's a big deal, but it just was cool to see that.
And by the way, Joe Bitonio said that those were Gatorades; those were not beers.
Oh, those weren't. Those were.
Just so you know, that's what he said. He said it was Gatorade. So
it's the best picture I've ever seen in my life. Like, I've seen some cool stuff. That was awesome. That was so cool that they were doing that. So, all right, last Philly question. Before we started, you went on your little food tour with me. What were some of the stops that you hit on on your trip to?
Well, so we went to someplace I had never gone to. It was called McGillen's Ale House, I think, and it was apparently the oldest tavern in Philly. And I sort of discovered it on a whim, but I was like, wait. Sounds good.
Before you go into the details, it's perfect. The context is that you're a quote unquote a wing snob, I believe is the exact.
Yeah, I'm a wing snob because I'm from Western New York, so rightfully so. But this place had really good wings. They were Old Bay, seasoned with Old Bay. Like, I've never heard of that. And I was like, this is awesome. These are incredible wings.
How do we determine, all right, what is the criteria for a good wing? And from Western New York, you're from
it has to be like the right consistency of like, the outside's a little crunchy, but the inside's still like juicy. It can't be dry. And you got to have like the right, like you got to season it right. Like if you're going to do something, I like a mix of things. Like I like a good dry rub every now and then, especially if it's like a lemon pepper or something. But like if you're doing like the buffalo or like the hot, like I just want it to taste like I'm expecting it to taste. But there's places that don't do it right and places that do it right. This place absolutely did it right. It was good. It was very good. And then we got cheesesteak the second night because when you're in Philly, you got to get cheesesteak.
When in Rome, right? When in Rome.
I've been trying cheesesteaks from different places there, and I need to put together like a power ranking at some point, but I got to try a few more places first, so we'll see.
And then you and Lance went on a little ice cream date on the way home. Is that what I heard?
Yes. Because we went to, if anyone's ever been to the Penn State Creamery, very good ice cream, maybe the best ice cream I've ever had in my life. So, no, I'm telling you, man, it's good. And I brought a pine home for my wife because I'm a good husband, or I try to be. She might not think that, but
we got to clip that. Hey, we're clipping that and sending it to her. We got to clip that. Just whenever she gets mad at you, we're gonna send that exact clip.
Yeah, we brought a Yeti cooler. We shoved it in the ice. We were like, "Yeah, this will keep it cold." Hey, those Yeti coolers, they tell you if Yeti wants to be a sponsor on the show, they tell you that they can keep ice cream frozen for hours. So we put that to the test. We'll see if my ice cream is soft tomorrow. I think it's probably fine because it's in the freezer now. But we're giving Yeti some love here for their ability to keep our ice cream frozen.
As our guys on Bussin' say, no free shout outs. But yeah, that's pretty good. That is good stuff. All right, I'll stop asking Philly questions because I think
we covered all our bases. I think this was a good show. certainly a lot to talk about, and certainly a stage set on Saturday. I'm assuming Dylan Gabriel is going to start for him to show what he can do in the preseason. And it's going to be a big storyline because we saw what Shedeur did last week. He's going to constantly be compared to Shedeur. If it's good, we'll have something to talk about. If it's bad, people are going to be clamoring even more for Shedeur Sanders to be higher on the depth chart once he's back from this oblique strain, which we don't know how long that's good. But in the meantime, make sure, what?
Wait, before you shut it down. For anybody who doesn't know, after the game, I'm going to go live with I'm going to go live with the quarterback breakdown. So it'll be after Spence and I will do our reaction show. So we'll go live after the game on Saturday. Reminder, I was telling some buddies, like they were talking about, hey, let's play golf. Let's do this on Saturday. I'm like, boys, Browns play at 1:00. Like, clear the schedules. We're locked in on the Browns because 1:00 kick on Saturday. It's going to have that college football feel to it. So Spence and I will go live after the game. And then after that show, I will be going live if it's Dylan Gabriel. If Tyler Huntley plays 4 quarters, I'm not going to do a film breakdown for all of the reasons we've talked about.
If Tyler Huntley plays 4 quarters, this post-game show is going to be like 5 minutes. We're going to come in and we're going to say, hey, what'd you think? And did anybody stand out? And then we're going to leave. That's it. Because nobody cares about Tyler Huntley. Sorry.
They call that promotion in the business, everybody. Write that down. Write that down. But yeah, if it's Dylan Gabriel, we will have
listen, we hope that if you choose a post-game show, that you choose our 5 minutes if that's what happens. But I'm just saying, like, there's not going to be much to talk about if it's Tyler Huntley for 4 quarters.
And we won't be unique in the fact that our show will be 5 minutes. But make sure you're tapped in after the game Saturday. Good, bad, ugly. We'll be here. Our ugly mugs will be on your screen here, giving you some recap afterwards.
That's going to do it. Head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns for any of our written content. I got breakdowns of both days of practice there, things that happened, what I saw, etc., etc. And also, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. You can find more content like this. Megs and I chopping it up about things going on with the Browns. You can also find all the press conferences from practice, post-game, all those good things. Kevin Stefanski, Kenny Pickett talked yesterday. He said he feels like he's turning a corner with his hamstring. Probably too late to get back in the quarterback competition, but who cares? You can see his full comments over at the YouTube channel as well. So again, just hit that subscribe button. We appreciate all you guys do for us to support the show, support the site, and support our channel. But in the meantime, have a great Friday. We will be back, as Meg said, on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, whatever you want to call it, with our post-game show. But until then, thank you, and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.